Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel, and it feels good to make an actual video about Celtic. Today we're finally going to sit down and talk about the real thing, and I know what you're thinking off the title of the video. Is it not a wee bit too early in the season for this? But trust me, it's never too early for a tier list. Never. If you haven't already, please make sure to hit like and subscribe. It would be much appreciated on that road to 50,000 subscribers. We want to try and get there as quickly as possible, and that's through you guys. So jump down below, hit both of those buttons. It's absolutely free, especially in the middle of an international break when there's not an awful lot to talk about. That's why I've wheeled this out today. You know the old saying, if in doubt, wheel the tier list out. And I know what you're thinking of the title of today's video. Is it not too early for this? It might be. We are only 11 competitive games into this season. We've only played 8 games in the league. We're in a very good position. And it's at that point that myself, I'm a critic of those who decide to either write people off or vice versa for the season. Because it's so early. You know, we've still got another 30 league games to play. We've still got another 4 Champions League games at least to play. You know, we've still got a long way to go, and people's seasons will change for the better or worse. We don't know what's in store, so it is very early days. However, we have now passed the kind of audition period of the season. I think that we now have a good gauge of where we are as a squad, who's ready, who's not, who's promising, who's not, and ultimately maybe we have a kind of small insight into what needs to be done in January. So there is a place to sit and review players' seasons so far. Can I just put a disclaimer out there for anyone who might get carried away with any of the opinions or rankings in this video? It's just a bit of fun, really. It is. I'm going to give my honest assessment, my honest opinion of everyone's season so far, but it is just a laugh. So if you are watching, or you happen to be a Celtic player and you're watching, don't worry. If you've not had the greatest start to the season, the season's not over. Game's not done. We've still got a long way to go. So it's just a bit of fun today. I need to break up something with a little bit of chat while we wait for Scotland to play in these 2 big games. So that's why we're doing this today. Interestingly enough, I looked through the squad statistics for the season so far, and I was amazed to find that only 6 players have been involved in every single squad across all 3 competitions we've competed in. Only 6. And that shows you already the struggles that we've had this season when it comes to injuries and the suspensions. We've not been able to have our full strength squad at all, really, this season. And it's been really hard to navigate through, but Brendan Rodgers has done it brilliantly. We sit top of the table by 7 points. We've looked promising at points in European games. I'm pretty content with how the season has started, and that's got to be a huge amount of credit to the manager and the guys who've chipped into that throughout the squad. There is a few players that we have left out today. You will notice that. There's a few players who haven't competed at all in competitive games. Those are the players that go by the names of Kwon, Mikey Johnson, Benjamin Siegrist, Yuki Kobayashi, James McCarthy, and Marco Tilio. Those are the first team players who haven't been even on, some of them have been on the bench, that's a lie, but they haven't played a single minute of competitive football this season, so we're leaving them out today, and we're going to go through all the players who have played a minute in competitive football. So yeah, let's get right into this. Let's stop wasting time. I love a tier list. So here we are, back on the old tier maker, and as you can see, this is probably the biggest tier list that I've done yet. There's a lot of columns here. I think we've got 8 or 9 that ranges from brilliant to shite. Simply put, the reason that there's so many is because it has been such a difficult start to the season, and there's so many people that you can't really generalise with saying like they've been good, they've been okay, because some players have looked good in a couple of games, but they've been injured. Some people have only got 4 or 5 appearances so far, and it makes it hard to really judge their season. And that's why this video is sort of a waste of time, but I still like to have a bit of fun. So there is the players in a random order down at the bottom of the screen. We're going to go through all of them. We're going to try and get through them. Yeah, I know already some of you are typing away in anger at some of the placings I'm going to do in this, but grow up. Let's start with the goalkeeper then, Joe Hart, who I think for a lot of people, going off the first couple of games of the season, would have probably had him right down here. because we jumped in two-footed, didn't we? I'm not saying all of us did, but a good majority of Celtic fans did seem to jump in two-footed. I think that you could argue he's been solid because I think he recovered very well from a shaky start to the season and he's put in some solid performances with some big saves. However, there has been one too many mistakes for me so far this season, and I think he's done a fantastic job to kind of make up for them. But these mistakes can be costly, and there's no room for that. So I'm going to put him in. He's been fine. He's done his bit this season so far. I think that if he keeps building on the form that he's put together in the last few games with the big saves and just ultimately eliminating those mistakes, he will move up to solid very quickly. But I'm going to put him in fine for now. The big man himself, who I think in every tier list I've ever done has always been in the top tier, and out of his performances when he has got to play, you could argue he has still been brilliant, Cameron Carter-Vickers, because he's just Cameron Carter-Vickers, but he's only played 4 games. Out of the 11 that we've played, Cameron Carter-Vickers has been struggling with the injuries. He came back from an injury very early on in the season. He then got injured a couple of weeks into the season. He returned very recently. After this international break, it will be his time again to be back up and brilliant. But for now, I'm going to put him in the injuries column. It makes sense. Hopefully, he's back to his best post-international break. Bernabei. Let me just get Bernabei's stats up for a minute. He's played twice. He's been involved in 4 squads. And I think at one of those 2 appearances, he was actually quite good. I can't remember the game exactly. He was okay. But let's be real. He's probably one of the only players who probably goes down here for me. He's just... And I mean this with all due respect, Alexandro. He's just not good enough to play for Celtic. I think that it's going to take a drastic swing in form and ability to prove that to anybody. He wasn't registered for the Champions League squad, and that says a hell of a lot. Because he's not struggled with injuries. I'm sorry, mate. I'm sorry. Tony Ralston, who has actually had to chip in a little bit this season, because obviously Alistair Johnson struggled with some injuries. He's one of the few players who have been involved in all 11 matchday squads. I think that I said at the start of the video there was only 6 players who've been involved in all 11. I think it's actually 7. I wasn't counting Ralston at first. He wasn't on my screen at the time. I think it's 7 players who've been in all 11 matchday squads, and he is one of them. And I think he's played 5 games, and he's been fine. He's done his bit. He has done his bit when he's had to this season. I still think there is obviously that question that remains in terms of gulf of class between him and Alistair Johnston. But when Ralston's had to fill in this season, he's done it well enough. So he's done his bit, and obviously signed a new contract as well. So solid start for Tony Ralston. And saying that, you know, I feel like solid and done their bit / fine are very similar. Very similar. I feel like I need to change the words. Solid is not the word that I'm looking for when it comes to this, because Ralston and Joe Hart have both been solid, but I just feel like they need something else to take it to the next level. I just don't know what to call the next level. You know, I don't know what to call it. Near brilliant. There we go. That'll do. Near brilliant. That'll do. Stevie Welsh, it's only fair to put him in injuries as well. Someone who I didn't expect to see a lot of this season. He's only made 1 appearance, and in that 1 appearance he was solid. He was fine. He done his job once again, showing that he's somebody who, just like Tony Ralston, can do his bit here. One of the homegrown lads, but 1 appearance, and that was then quickly brought to a grinding halt by injuries. A big one, and we don't know exactly when he'll be back yet. Hopefully a speedy recovery for Stevie Welsh, and hopefully he can be involved again with the squad soon. I don't know where his place will be now that we've seen Scales come in and do such a great job, but injuries is the only fair place to put him. David Turnbull up next, and after the first couple of games of the season, he was probably up here. He was probably flying high, loving life, glad to see Brendan Rodgers back at Celtic. But I think after the first couple of performances, he kind of dipped a little bit. I'd put him in between Hart and Ralston. I think that it was very evident that Turnbull probably shouldn't be starting week in, week out for Celtic. He's just a little bit slower than the other guys. I think that the quality does drop when he comes in. Still a great player, but Hatate and Matt O'Reilly are the guys that should be starting in that area. And you know what? He's done his bit. He's chipped in. He's scored a couple of good goals. Solid start to the season for him. He's done his bit. He's done his bit. The first player to put under promising, Odin Thiago Holm, who does look very promising. Of course, the one blip and the one negative is that red card against Feyenoord. It was costly, it was rash, it was stupid. It was very, as the word that was thrown about afterwards, inexperienced, but I take that aside for a minute. He looks like he's going to be a great player. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Odin Thiago Holm. I think he's got a big future here at the club. Promising start for his Celtic career. He just needs more minutes, because there's only so much you can do with, 10, 20 minutes under your belt. So yeah, promising. And this might be controversial, because I don't think he's in the same boat as Odin Thiago Holm when it comes to age. And obviously Thiago Holm's just arrived, whereas we've seen Awata for a while. But I'm also going to put Awata in promising, because you could see he's done his bit, but he's had nowhere near as many minutes as like Turnbull or Ralston has. Awata was someone who I think a lot of fans still questioned at the start of the season whether or not he was going to be good enough. Was he one of the duds that Ange signed? No, I think he's far from it. I think Awata's got a big part to play. His time will come where I think minutes will maybe come in more amounts. He looks promising for me, and I think he's taking his chances, his very small chances, well so far this season. I think he's got a lot of qualities as that defensive midfielder. Some that you could even argue in certain areas better than McGregor, just naturally defensive. But he's got a long way to go. And he, just like Thiago Holm, needs a lot more minutes to show it. I'm going to put Awata in promising, because I think there is a player in there. Underwhelming for Paulo Bernardo is the only place to put him so far. And once again, I need to be very, very clear about this. This is not a slight on the player at all. This is not me taking digs at him, because we've just not got to see him. Simple as that. He's barely kicked a ball for Celtic. He's came on in 10, 20 minute spells, and he's not had an awful lot to do. But when he has came on in those 10, 20 minute spells, he's not set the world alight. He's not stood out. I've never left the ground going, oh, Paulo Bernardo looks like he could be good. He's just not had that impact coming off the bench yet. He needs more minutes if we want to see what he's all about. I was very excited about this signing, but it's just hard to get into the team right now when you've got players like O'Reilly, Hatate, McGregor. They are the holy trinity of midfield players. I mean, Paulo Bernardo, if I could just get it very quickly, if I can find it on my screen, how many times has he even came off the bench for Celtic? I can't even find his name. There he's there. 3 times he's came off the bench. But I can't remember any of those times being anything spectacular. So it's underwhelming right now, but I don't think that's his fault. He just needs that one performance to kind of show what he can do and argue his case for more minutes. Our best player so far this season, without a shadow of a doubt, he goes right into brilliant. Matt O'Reilly, he has been just fantastic. He's been my player of the season so far. I mean, very early days to be having conversations like that, but I mean, he's been that good. He's our joint top goal scorer, 5 goals. He has been the creative genius in the middle of the park. He is Brendan Rodgers' golden boy. He was the player that I was most excited to see under Brendan Rodgers, and he is living up to those expectations that I had. I can't say a negative word about Matt O'Reilly's season so far. Brilliant, and he deserves to be right at the top. By the way, a lot of people are talking online. Rio Hatate probably goes into underwhelming, because a lot of people aren't happy with what they've seen of Rio Hatate so far. 8 appearances, 2 goals, and 1 assist. I would say he's been fine, but we all know he can go up to another level. He should be up the top. He's just not had that yet, and he's kind of been unlucky as well, because he's been in and out with injuries. He had to come back from a little bit of a layoff. We've seen that he wasn't quite 100%. The last couple of games, it looks as though he's getting back to that. So after the international break, it's time for him to push himself up to where he belongs, and that's the top couple tiers. However, I will not buy into the argument that he's been poor, that he's been terrible. He's not been terrible. I think he's just been unlucky with the kind of stop-start season he's had. Yeah, he's been absolutely fine for me. I just know that there's better in there, and I really want to see it. Scott Bain. I mean, let's just get this over and done with. He's done his bit. He came in when Joe Hart was suspended, done a job. And that fair play. That's fair play. What else is there to say about it? On that note, I said that I wasn't going to involve Benjamin Siegrist in this, and I've just realised his photo is down here. So I'll just very quickly drag him into shite. Sorry, Benjamin, it's nothing on you. I may as well just put you somewhere for now, even though you've not played a single minute. And, I mean, there's nowhere really else to put him. I guess you could say he's just been underwhelming, hasn't he? Because he's not had that chance. But I'm just going to keep you down here now, Benjamin. It's not a reflection on what I think of your abilities. Just, I need to put you somewhere. Callum McGregor. This one, I think, takes a little bit to discuss. And I think there's many different things that can come into this. Callum McGregor is someone who, like Cameron Carter-Vickers, is always normally up here. However, I don't think Callum McGregor has been himself this season, consistently anyway. I don't think he's been the best version of himself, and I think he knows that. And I think he's been more than okay. He's done his job, but he's just not been vintage Callum McGregor. He's starting to get back to it. I think he's just like Reo Hatate in the last few games. He's now starting to thrive, and maybe that's just a big adjustment from going from Ange Postecoglou to Brendan Rodgers. I would love to say that I could even put him in here, but I think that he's just kind of on par with Hatate, because there's been, especially at the start of the season, I just thought McGregor looked so far from his normal self, and it took him a few games to start getting back into his normal self. So I'm going to actually put him in there just now. I know that one's probably up for a bit of debate and discussion. But Callum McGregor, just like Reo Hatate, is someone I know who can take it to another level. And after this international break, yeah. And this is a point I want to throw in very quickly. I really hope, really hope that Steve Clarke rests Callum McGregor against France. He does not need to play a stupid, meaningless friendly. The boy deserves a break. He plays more football than anybody on this planet. Give him a break. Not just for Celtic's benefit, but for the boy himself. Give him a break. I hope he doesn't play against France. James Forrest. God. where do you put Forrest? Like, James Forrest just deserves his own row on this grid, because, let's be real, he's past the days of playing for Celtic. Those days are gone. You could argue he's just not good enough anymore. But in the couple of appearances that he's had, where is he? James Forrest. Let me see. How many has he actually played? I think it must be about 2. He's been involved in basically every squad. But how many has he actually played? He's been involved in 10 squads and played 6 times. But he's not been awful. He's not been. He's not been awful. I'm just going to put him at the bottom of done their bit. There's not even a point in discussing James Forrest. He is who he is. We know why he's here. He's been here a long time. He's a modern day icon of the club for some. There's not much to say. Talking about promising, here's your man. Get him to the top of promising, Luis Palma. I have ranted and raved about him for a couple of weeks now. Really excited to see what he does. He's only getting started. His chances have only started. Yeah. Luis Palma, by the way. He could be, who knows, maybe up here come the end of the season. Up beside Matt O'Reilly. Top of promising for me. Kyogo goes up and brilliant. He has been brilliant. Just picking up from where he left off under Ange Postecoglou, still scoring goals. He's got 5 so far this season. He's played in all 11 games, 5 goals, 2 assists. Maybe you want to see more goals, but he's been brilliant. The wee man just pops up in areas and he's played a different role. You see him sitting a lot deeper, but I think that involves the midfield players a lot more. So what he's doing in that role is actually crucially important. And he might not be scoring as many, but there's so much more to his game now, I think, and he just constantly gets better, the wee guy. So he goes up and brilliant. It's Kyogo. Abada, who has only played 5 games, 1 goal, 1 assist, looked very promising in the first couple of games, but injuries have just kind of hampered away at him. I'm going to put him below Vickers. Injuries have stopped his season. We're not going to see him till January now. There's not much conversation to be had. Yang, I would also shove into promising. I think there's aspects of his game that look really good. There's also aspects of his game which need developed. There's aspects that Brendan Rodgers and the coaching team will work on to make him a more complete player, a better player. And there's a lot of that needs done with Yang. But there's certainly, he's very raw, but there's certainly a lot of talents in his game, a lot of good positive things about his game. He's a good runner. He's been very direct. Just needs to sharpen up on the kind of, I think, the technical side and maybe the mental side of the game a little bit more. Physically looks a really good player though. I like him. I've been happy with what I've seen of his chances so far, but I think he's a way off being someone that we can count on week in, week out. So promising is a good assessment of Yang. Over to his other South Korean teammate, it's O, who has been underwhelming for me. I'm putting him in underwhelming. He has been. And listen, all creates such a discussion, and some of it's a sore head. People are like, oh, he's nowhere near good as Giakoumakis. We shouldn't have let Giakoumakis go. Giakoumakis wanted to go. We had to let him go. And yes, isn't anywhere near the player that Giakoumakis was. My patience is wearing thin a little bit for O, because I've yet to see enough evidence to suggest he's good enough to be, being the second choice striker when you need goals. Is he the player who's going to come on and change a game? He's not scored this season in 7 games. He's not scored. which is why I'm losing patience. But I think it was Mark Wilson on the Super Scoreboard who said the other day, I would love to see a statistic put forward as to the actual chances that O's had. You know, I've never left the game thinking like O has missed an absolute sitter. He's not had a great amount of chances. And last season when he did, he put them away. And I think a lot of that obviously comes down to the player and not putting himself into the positions and areas to get these chances. But when he comes on, it's, you know, we're 10 minutes away from the end. We've won the game. He's just kind of there to kind of hold out the win. It's a very different situation for O than it is Kyogo, and that makes it difficult to judge him as a player. Would I like to see us sign another striker? Yes. I think that underwhelming is probably a fair assessment for him right now. I don't care what any of you say. Dyson Maeda deserves to be up near the top. He's had his imperfections, which is why I've not put him in brilliant, because there is obviously moments that we've been very frustrated at Dyson Maeda, but you cannot take away or underestimate the importance that Dyson Maeda holds in this team and how crucial he's been. He and Kyogo have been the only two forwards who have played in all 11 games. I think so anyway. Let me just double check that. Let me get back to it. Yep, the only two forwards who have played in all 11 games. He has such an importance for Brendan Rodgers, especially somebody who was wrote off. A lot of people like, he'll never survive under Rodgers. And here he is. He's played all 11 games. He has scored 1, assisted 2, but his pace and his abilities that Brendan Rodgers has made important to this team still, they're still true in the side. He's up there. He's been brilliant for me. He's frustrating. Yeah, absolutely. But he's done a solid job. I don't care what anybody says. He has. Alistair Johnson, he has been for me. He's been brilliant. He has. Maybe near brilliant because he's been out with injury. Yeah, I wouldn't put him, because these two guys have played all 11 games. Alistair Johnson has, and these 3 guys have played all 11 games. So I'll bring him down. Alistair Johnson, though, has still played in 8 games this season. And those 8 games, including an injury where he had to come back from it, I just think he's been brilliant again. He is just, I love him. I love him to bits. Top bloke, top player. He goes up near the top for me. He's just so solid in everything that he does. So little that's wrong with his game, I think. Yeah, good season for Ali J. Taylor is getting better. If you asked me 2-3 weeks ago, maybe, he would have been underwhelming. But he started picking it up. I think that deserves for him to be involved back in here. Plus, he's one of those guys who's played a lot of football as well. One of the only players who's played 11 out of 11 games. He's done well to keep his head up, keep going when a lot of people said that he was done and wasn't going to work for Brendan Rodgers. Brendan Rodgers has learned to adapt his system to let let Greg Taylor play with those aspects of being an inverted fullback as well. He's done his bit. He's been fine so far and hopefully just steadily improves as the season goes on. Lager Bielka. Yes, Lager Bielka. I am going to put Lager Bielka in. I didn't need the not good enough column, did I? Now that I think about it, why is that even here? It's just an eyesore. I'm going to take it out in a minute. Lager Bielka, I'm going to put him in promising because I think he does look promising. A lot of people are really holding a grudge against him because of that red card in the European game. Maybe he wasn't quite ready for that level of football yet, but him and Scales looks brilliant. That makeshift centre-half partnership has been really good. Now that's kind of passed. Vickers is back. Nawrowski's almost back as well. But Lagerbielke does look promising. I like him. A lot of good things in his game. A lot of things that need improved on in his game as well. People talking about his short pass and not being great. That they'll work on that. They'll fix that. But defensively, didn't put feet wrong a lot of time. And for a young guy, he's stepped up and done what he had to do. The red card is a shame. But yeah, promising for me. Which brings us on to the last 3 players. Funnily enough, the last 4 have all been centre-backs. This is all a randomised order. The system decides it, not me, and it's left us with 4 centre-halves. I'm going to very quickly put 2 players into the column they deserve to be in. Nat Phillips and Mike Nawrowski. Both need to go in injuries. Mike Nawrowski looks really good. Solid. He's going to be back in the team soon, hopefully. He's been good. Just, yeah, looks good. Phillips... he's played 2 games, 3 games, and I don't even know if he's played a full 90 actually. Now that I think, I can't think off the top of my head if he's played a full 90. he's been unlucky with the way he's came in, the manner that everything's kind of happened for him. Both of them just gone to the injuries column. Not enough there to give them a full assessment on their season. But they've both rarely put a foot wrong when they have played, so fair play to the two of them. This boy, though, to end off the video, what a fitting way to end off this tier list by talking about Liam Scales. Because my oh my, how are we sitting here 8 games into the league season, 11 games into the season, and Liam Scales... he deserves it. I'm putting him in brilliant. He has been brilliant. What has he done wrong? Nothing. He looked like he was going to struggle. I remember watching him play against St Johnstone that day at Celtic Park, and Stevie May turned him inside out, and I thought to myself, oh no, we're going to have to play with Scales at the back for God knows how long. And this can't go on. We can't do this. And it was a poor game. And Scales just didn't look the level. My oh my. Since then, how good has Liam Scales been? He hasn't put a foot wrong. He's been constantly man of the match material ever since. Liam Scales has now played in 8 games this season. And aside from, as I said, that one St Johnstone game, and those other 7 games, he's been near perfect. And he's given it his absolute all, even in the European games. Who wanted to see Scales starting European games at the start of the season? Nobody. Don't lie and say to yourself you did. Start of the season, if Scales was in a European squad, if you told me that, I'd be like, oh no. But he handled them brilliantly, especially being down to 9 men against Feyenoord. That boy deserves a medal in himself for that. So, brilliant season for Scales so far. Really happy with what I've seen of him. Don't know how much we're going to see of him between now and the end of the season, of course, with players like Nawrocki coming back. But he definitely deserves his chances. That was a long one. When there's 27 players to talk about, it tends to take a bit of time. And we obviously don't get to go into too much discussion, and we'll be here for days. But there's the kind of... Ignore the not good enough column. I shouldn't have put that in there. I wish that I could just go and take it away, but it doesn't let me. Can I just make it blank and pretend there's actually nothing there? If there's anything so far about this season, it just shows you how big a part injuries have played. Because guys who would be expecting to be up near the top, like Vickers, Abada, Nawrocki, who's looked good, they have to be down here because they've been injured. And even guys like Hatate, he's had a stop-start campaign with a couple of injuries. So if one thing shows me anything is that, I mean, as I said at the start of the video, 7 players have been involved in all 11 squads, which is it's nuts. But there's a few players. I think that what we've had is a steady start to the season, and now we need to take it to another level. I want to see the regulars like McGregor, like Hatate, like Taylor. I want to see them up here. I want to see Palmer up there. I want to see all these guys up in the brilliant column. And that's what we need to aim for, and that's what we need to kick on from now until the end of the season and doing, just to take this team and for Brendan Rodgers to take the team to that next level. But that's going to wrap it up for today. I've spoke for an awful long time. I'm going to get going and editing this. If you have enjoyed, make sure to hit like and subscribe. Let me know all your opinions in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.